I fled that small town carrying nothing but a storm of anger and a hollow loneliness I didn't know how to fill. My parents had severed all ties with me without any investigation or explanation, and the so-called friends I had drifted away one by one after hearing my girlfriend's accusations. Even during the few days I was held in temporary detention, I felt utterly abandoned by the world. No one believed me. No one spoke up in my defense. The police eventually released me. There was no evidence, but that didn't change my parents' or friends' perception of me. In their eyes, I was still the one who had supposedly taken her body. With a worn backpack slung over my shoulder, I headed south along the East Coast highways, putting as much distance as possible between myself and that place of humiliation and ridicule. I did odd jobs at roadside motels, mowed neighbors' lawns, carried groceries, and occasionally washed dishes at diners. Every meager dollar I earned reminded me of one unshakable truth. I had to survive on my own. I couldn't rely on anyone else. At first, nights spent in shabby rental rooms were restless. My parents' disappointed voices, my ex-girlfriend's triumphant laughter, and the cold avoidance of former friends echoed in my ears. I hated myself, hated my helplessness, and the memory of the person who had once been unable to protect himself. One day, at a small community volunteer program, I met a middle-aged man named Daniel. He was a guidance counselor at a local elementary school. Daniel didn't ask too many questions. He simply taught me basic life skills: how to manage bills, perform simple repairs, handle day-to-day tasks. He seemed to see through my defenses, always patiently waiting until I was ready to speak. Life has its lows, he told me once, but a low point isn't the end. You can choose to stand back up. I smiled at the time, unwilling to discuss my past or expose anyone to my shame. Slowly, I found a rhythm working as a teaching assistant at the community center. Each morning, I rode a secondhand bike through quiet streets, past diners sending the aroma of fresh coffee and baked bread into the air. The children's laughter and curious eyes in the classroom allowed me to forget, for a moment, the pain of my past. Watching them diligently write and solve arithmetic problems, I felt a glimmer of hope. I could still find a sense of belonging. During this period, I severed almost all ties with my past. I discarded my old phone, changed emails and social accounts, even adopted a new name. Every time I saw that new name on forums, I felt as if I had been reborn from gray ashes. This new identity allowed me to temporarily avoid the shame of my past, and for those around me, I became simply a young man trying to make his way, rather than someone labeled and disgraced. When I finally managed to move into a small apartment, my life began to stabilize. The place was modest but clean. I bought groceries from nearby markets, cooked for myself, and after finishing tasks at the community center in the evening, I would sit by the window and watch the streetlights glow in the night. Loneliness still lingered, but it no longer felt suffocating. I had learned to coexist with it, rather than let it consume me. A few years later, I decided to return to university. Burdened by debt, I relied on part-time jobs and student loans just to cover tuition. Every day, I woke at 5 in the morning to deliver packages, attended classes in the afternoon, and studied in the library at night. I had to prepare more thoroughly than my peers because failure carried real consequences: more debt, more pressure. Life was filled with constant, grinding stress: bank bills, food, rent, and the occasional flash of humiliating memories. But it was this nearly overwhelming pressure that taught me resilience, and gradually I realized the world would not hand me justice simply because I had suffered. I had to fight for it myself. During college, I met a few true friends. They came from all sorts of backgrounds: international students, newcomers from small towns. We studied together, discussed assignments, and sometimes shared the challenges of our personal lives. Slowly, I learned to trust others, even if only a little. That feeling of being understood made me feel less like I was facing life alone and allowed me to believe again in human kindness. After graduating, I earned my teaching credentials. Though debt remained heavy, I now had a relatively stable profession. I decided to move halfway across the world, to a country far from my hometown, to start fresh. In this new country, I took a job teaching at a secondary school and rented a small apartment. At first, I had almost nothing, but I carried with me the resilience forged from hardship, determined to organize my life carefully. Each day at work, The curiosity and eagerness of the students filled me with purpose. After school, I cooked, cleaned, and on weekends participated in community activities. Slowly, I became part of this unfamiliar environment. One day in the library, I met a woman named Emily. She had a gentle nature and a warm smile, always willing to listen patiently to my frustrations about teaching and often helping me organize lesson plans. At first, I was wary of her closeness. Whenever she approached, I instinctively recoiled, my fingers trembling from tension. But over time, I realized she never pressured or judged me. She simply stayed. For the first time, I understood that someone could wait patiently, not retreat out of fear or gossip. That we began having lunch together, occasionally taking walks on weekends, and I slowly learned to let down my guard. Her family accepted me quickly, despite me being a foreigner, treating me with care as if I were family. That sense of respect and acceptance reminded me of the family warmth I had never truly known, and I realized I might be worthy of love and deserving of a home. Not long after, we married. The ceremony was simple, attended by a few friends and her family. That day, I finally felt that my life no longer had to be defined by past shadows. Emily and I moved into a new house and began our life together. A few years later, we welcomed twins, a daughter and a son. Their arrival gave my life a profound sense of purpose. I learned to hold them patiently, to remain calm during their cries, and to create a sense of security that I had once lacked. Life gradually stabilized. My self-esteem and confidence grew alongside my children. I worked hard to do well in my career and to provide warmth and safety for my family. While flashes of past humiliation occasionally surfaced, I knew I was no longer the helpless, abandoned person I once was. I had people to rely on, a family to care for, and a life to build. But just when I thought I had left the past behind, the doorbell rang late at night, making my chest tighten. The wind blew through the window, carrying the sound of knocking down the empty hallway. I picked up my son and headed to his room, signaling Emily to take our daughter to her room. Outside, a familiar voice called softly, "Child, it's me, your father." I froze. Memories flooded in like a rising tide. The moments of accusation, isolation, and shame, now starkly contrasted with the laughter of my children. I didn't know how to face him or what his arrival might mean. But I knew one thing. This time, I had to confront the past. I drew a deep breath, settled the children, and told myself, the conversation ahead will determine whether my past and present can ever meet.